All hostages are freed from a hotel in Burkina Faso after terrorists stormed that building, killing at least 23 people earlier. Some gunmen are holed up in a different hotel now. Coming up to this hour, videos released allegedly showing Israeli defense forces praising each other while shooting Palestinian protesters. And a bar in small-town East Austria bans all refugees from being served. Broadcasting worldwide from Moscow, this is RT International with me, Kevin Owen, this hour. Very good afternoon from me then. Our top story, soldiers in Burkina Faso have now freed 126 hostages from that luxury hotel in the capital that had been stormed by gunmen on Friday night. But at least 23 people of 18 different nationalities lost their lives too in that siege. Soldiers killed 3 gunmen there and one at another hotel across the street. An unknown number of attackers are still holed up in that hotel. Survivors have been describing the horrors they witnessed.
People were lying on the ground and there was blood everywhere. They were shooting people at point-blank range. They set fire to the place and the smoke started to suffocate me and the other survivors.
Everything was on fire. There was someone in front of me and they shot him and he fell onto me.
What?
An Al-Qaeda offshoot in West Africa says it is behind what's happened here. The gunmen reportedly shouted they were carrying out revenge against France. Burkina Faso is a former colony and French troops have taken part in freeing the hostages now. Some witnesses earlier complained too that the security forces they thought had taken too long to act.
The army and the police came, but they are just turning round. We are waiting. Maybe they are preparing for something. But we know that the gunmen won't get out from the hotel alive. Our country is not for jihadists or terrorists. They are wrong.
Well, these are pictures of that hotel that has come under attack. It's a 4-star facility with 150 rooms normally. It's popular with Westerners and UN staff. In an online statement, the terrorists said they hit that hotel to specifically target foreigners. It's only 2 months, of course, looking back in recent history, since the region suffered a similar deadly attack when terrorists stormed a Radisson Blu hotel in neighbouring Mali, also killing dozens and taking hostages. Let's cross now to Ricardo Beretsky, expert on terrorism and global threats. Hi there, Ricardo. Thanks for being with us. I'm coming to you just a second. Before I do, just want to update our viewers, and the news line just coming through about this, to update the latest is now, according to a security source there, that Burkina Faso security forces have, they say, completed officially now their operations against the jihadists. So maybe that also includes the other hotel we're talking about across the road from the main scene of the attack today. Ricardo, thanks for staying with us. Now, this attack, then, let's just look at what's happened over the last 48 hours. This was in Burkina Faso Friday evening. Earlier that day, terrorists struck in Somalia. As I mentioned just now, 2 months ago, Mali was targeted. Is Africa, do you worry, being consumed by maybe a wave of terrorism that's engulfing it over from the Middle East, the same kind of thing?
Well, we have warned 2 years ago when we completed our report on Africa that there's a growing threat in Africa. This threat is very real. It's not been paid so much serious attention to as the same issue in the Middle East. We have to understand that Africa has a history of terrorism as a whole. And we have to pay attention that this particular terror threat, it is expanding their footprint not only in West Africa, but will in the future also expand in the southern part.
There are reports that jihadists, more and more from small African terror cells, are starting to cross over to Islamic State these days. Begs the question, why is ISIL therefore maybe more appealing to them these days, do you think?
Well, ISIL has an interest in developing their footprint as an Islamic State. But we have to go back to the history of Africa and understand that there's an historical history when it comes to the expanding of this particular footprint long before ISIL came around. So we have to realize that the ISIL tree is in fact what we call a dual tree, an African tree and then also the Middle Eastern tree. What we have to pay attention here is that we have to seriously focus on a proper world order, right? If we don't focus on this, you know, the term justice and the law enforcement has to pay attention. We have to develop this radically and very fast in Africa. And this is lacking as it's systematically broken down.
Well, so what can you do about it? It's easy to say, but what practical steps can be taken about it? And we're so early into this new year, we've already basically seen 3 attacks. I guess there's going to be more to come, yeah?
Absolutely. We predict that this is, we have said this last year, and we will repeat this. From ESA's point of view, our analytical research indicates that this is only the beginning. What we have to do is to keep accountable the leaders who is involved. These leaders, the African leaders, have to realize the fact that they sit in the African Union doesn't excuse them from responsibility. They have a responsibility towards not only Europe, but also the rest of the world and the international community.
Why particularly are foreigners on the hit list here in these hotels?
Well, as we know, in the last 2 years, there's been a tremendous increase on targeting foreigners from Europe, in particular after the Charlie Hebdo attack. Now, season time is peak time. Africa is a cheap destination, it's easy to go, but the risks are very, very high and real. For tourists, we strongly advise there's better destinations at this point in time, but pay attention that the target on tourists is a methodical plan. So it's a strategic planning process that ISIL is continuing.
Ricardo, thanks for your insight. Ricardo Brzeski, expert on terrorism and global threats, live on Out International.
Oh.
A busload of Syrian refugees, we brought you this story yesterday, an update now, dispatched to the German Chancellor's office on Friday, has now been returned again to Bavaria. The governor there came good on his promise to send them all the way to Berlin, long trip, in protest at Angela Merkel's handling of the immigration crisis. But after turning up on Merkel's doorstep, they then spent the night in a hotel before being sent straight back again. Here's how the governor behind the stunt reacted.
I took this step because we don't have anywhere to house these people. Every week we receive about 70 refugees, and we have to find accommodation for them. This isn't working, and the government needs to recognize that.
Meantime, in Western Germany, a public swimming pool in one town is now forbidden entry to male refugees aged over 18. It seems local authorities have stepped in following alleged incidents of sexual harassment. Visitors and employees complained of attacks by men, which they say are mainly of Arab and North African origin. That town's near Cologne, the scene, of course, of those mass assaults over the New Year that were also blamed on refugees. But despite the incidents, some locals aren't against the idea of migrants using the pool, so there's a mix here.
I think that everyone should have the chance to enjoy their free time, especially after fleeing their homeland. If I was one of them, I would like to be able to come here and relax.
I think this is unacceptable. We cannot tolerate their behavior. We have to deal with this and show them how to conduct themselves.
If they behave badly, then they need to accept the consequences.
Well, there are more examples too. Anti-migrant sentiments have been evident elsewhere in Europe since the start of the year. In Austria, a bar in a small town in that country in the east has banned all refugees. The owner said she'd made the decision after a number of female customers said that they were repeatedly harassed by, again, male migrants.
The instruction that they can come in. That's the entrance from €2 that the people now have to pay to come in, and also the refugees don't have the money to pay €2. The refugees was there, sometimes they're standing here, and the girls were dancing, and they touched. And when a girl was going to the toilet, they went after. So that's the ladies' room, and that's the men's room, and they were waiting here, and that's not good. It shows that a woman is nothing for them.
Well, the online reaction to the move's been one of outrage, but the bar's locals are backing the owner's decision.
A friend of mine was sexually harassed by refugees. They followed her into the toilet and then followed her outside. She's in favor of the new rules.
I feel much safer now. When I tell these people I don't want to talk to them, they don't understand. They don't respect us like Austrian boys do.
My daughter is 21 and she couldn't go out to parties because she didn't feel safe. I can't believe these things have been happening. With the new rules, she feels safer and can go out again.
And again, more examples now. It's dividing opinion. Also in Austria, disciplinary proceedings have been opened against one doctor there who refuses to treat asylum seekers. Dr. Thomas Unden, who works as a general practitioner in Vienna, has put a sign up on his office door telling refugees they are not welcome. He explained why he did that to us.
I am going to give them first aid, but that's all. Because I tell you one thing, you can't mix such different cultures in that way. They all in these countries have other rims of activity and brutality. For these people in this country, war is their daily bread. For people in Europe, they don't even know anything about war.
We got reaction from Quiva Butley, who campaigns for migrant rights. She says refugees are being used as scapegoats for security lapses.
I think to use this as an example to demonize and criminalize entire, refugee communities is a huge mistake. I think that there has to be, a very real and very honest look at the security lapses that allowed for huge, widespread attacks on young women on New Year's Eve. But that has to be done in a context, that is responsible, that is transparent, and that really seeks to not allow this to perpetuate a criminalization of huge communities of people who are entering Europe seeking refuge, security, safety, and lives of more possibility. Amongst them, both men and women who completely oppose what was done on New Year's.
Reporting next, a video's emerged of Israeli soldiers allegedly sharing a joke about shooting a protester, prompting Palestinian activists to reportedly present the footage to the International Criminal Court.
חטף. חטף. לא חטף נמוך אבל. חטף בתחת. כן? בול בתחת.
Well, that clip goes on to show Israeli soldiers firing at several other protesters too.
ראית אותו עכשיו הוא מתכופף? תן לו מתרומם, עומד. רשאי. נפל. נפל, יפה מאוד. יפה מאוד. איזה פגיעה. נפל.
Palestinian officials and human rights groups have emphasized the importance of this video now being released and getting into the public domain.
If this footage has not been edited, then it clearly shows occupying forces violating human rights. The video fell into the hands of Palestinians by chance.
International organizations should use the video as evidence in calling for human rights to be protected.
What's also being pointed out by some is that Israeli forces often respond to stone-throwing protesters with live rounds. Videos of previous clashes seem to show an imbalance in the kind of weapons used in such skirmishes. Correspondent Amir Owen from Israel's Haaretz newspaper believes the IDF soldiers get away with far too much.
Sniper is aiming at the knee or the lower leg or lower body at least, so that all of them are being hit in the buttocks or in their legs, and then you see them trying to run away, falling, being carried, and so on and so forth, which means that the rules of engagement have been quite permissive. Over the last 3 months or so, Israeli Defense Forces have permission to fire at the demonstrators. This is the result of a century or so of enmity, of conflict, and unfortunately this is not going to end anytime soon.
Live from the RT News Centre. Thanks for being with us today. Ahead in the programme, an American farmer reveals some unpalatable truths about the chicken meat industry. The next, plunging oil prices and sliding stock markets. 2016 really isn't getting off to a very good start, with storm clouds gathering over the global economy.
Price of oil has dropped again.
Oil prices, they plunge, dropping price of oil.
So, is it all doom and gloom, or is there some light at the end of the tunnel? Well, we asked investor and financial commentator Jim Rogers what we can expect.
First thing you need to learn is don't listen to governments, don't listen to bureaucrats, and don't listen to politicians. They always say everything is okay. There were people who before 2008 said it was going to end badly. There have been people since who said it's going to end badly. So just start learning your own judgment, your own ideas, because the idea that the solution to more debt, to too much debt, is more debt and more spending is ludicrous. It's ludicrous that grown-ups would stand there and say something like that, and yet that's what governments all over the world have been doing. It's going to be worse than 2008, though. You're going to see bankruptcies. The debt is much higher all over the world now. Even China now has a lot of debt, which it did not have in 2008. No, I'm afraid you're going to see a lot of problems. Everybody's debt has gone through the roof. Money has been printed. Be worried.
In the meantime, a China-led investment bank is officially open for business. It's thought to be an alternative to the US-based World Bank and International Monetary Fund. During the opening ceremony, Chinese President Xi Jinping said that the bank will help provide economic growth for Asia and the rest of the world. The International Bank includes countries such as India, the United Kingdom, Germany and Russia, and representatives of member states say this new bank could be a real game changer for world economics.
This bank is definitely different than other multilateral banks like World Bank and the ADB, because this is dedicated for the infrastructure development, and we are very much weak in infrastructure development in the country.
We want to contribute to the continued success of the Asian region by building further infrastructure within the region and also benefiting from the region of the European and Asian cooperation. The Netherlands is very closely connected to many Asian countries.
The initiative comes from China, comes from Asia, so it also shows that there's been a rebalancing in the world economy.
The World Health Organization has declared that Ebola has finally been defeated, but a day later the virus killed another victim. So is Africa really Ebola-free now? Try and gauge it after the break.
The world is changing phenomenally. I mean, who expected this sea of refugees to occur? And it doesn't seem to be stopping. And we don't know where this will end. And it is bringing conversations home to us, which were conveniently distant before. But the presence of all those people in our Western cultures is going to change the conversation, interestingly. And it's going to be frightening. Like in France now, Marine Le Pen, Front National gets bigger every time, and there are those right-wing unpleasant parties in almost every country. But at least there's a dialogue out in the open.
Do we speak your language? Want news, programs and documentaries in Arabic? It's all here on RT. Reporting from the world's hotspots, VIP interviews, intriguing stories. Are you here? Then try RT Arabic. To find out more, visit arabic.rt.com.
Again, an American chicken farmer is ruffling feathers in the food industry over claims of widespread malpractice. He says firms routinely mislead customers about the conditions the birds are reared in. Maria Finoshna went to meet him.
They are basically putting stuff on labels and putting stuff in advertisements that is so far removed from what's actually happening in those barns. The birds are crammed in there pretty tight, running risk of scratches and diseases, and that bacteria, that's an entry point for it. It's got to affect the meat. There's just no way it can't. It was like nonstop E. coli, salmonella, people getting sick, and I'm sure some people died from it. The bedding is basically a mixture of dirt, sawdust, their feces is bacteria laden. Without something in that feed, those birds couldn't survive.
What do you think is there?
Actually, it's the pharmaceuticals that would be in that feed. And it doesn't matter whether it's no antibiotics or antibiotics, they're still getting drugs. It's just not classified as antibiotics.
It's not that everything is growing so fast. It's there's certain parts that are growing fast. It's the breast meat that they've been bred for to be plumper. The side effect of that big breast is the organs cannot function properly to keep up with that rapid growth, meaning their organs give out, meaning heart attacks.
How many die, let's say, a day?
A day?
No, they don't.
It varies a day. I'll lose about 1,000, the entire flock.
This is a terrible smell, I can tell you. It even hurts my eyes, to be honest.
Yeah, the ammonia will sting them a little bit.
I feel really bad. I'll be outside, okay? Craig, you said what's written here is far from reality. Exactly what is not true?
Raised cage-free, you saw it. That's what they call cage-free. You can cram them in there till they can't move, but if there's not a cage in there, they call them cage-free. And no hormones or steroids. It's been outlawed since the 70s. It means nothing. It's meaningless. Just saying, you know, like the sky's blue kind of thing. Is that going to grab your attention? Is it? I mean, really?
Actually, yes. I would say yes.
Yeah. The FDA or the USDA, who's ever in charge for the misbranding or mislabeling, needs to get in on this.
Now, the kicker is the USDA is not coming in here with their own third-party standards. They're taking the standards that the industry wrote for themselves. And they're just taking that checklist, and if Purdue is doing what Purdue says it's doing, they make 100. It's like you get a dishonest kid grading his own test paper. Look, Mom, I made 100. That kind of thing. That's the way I see it. It's a joke. Nothing wrong with anybody making money, and nothing wrong with a corporation making money. But when you start walking on people's backs, it's a whole different story. Was it Kissinger that said, control the nations, control the oil, control the food, and you control the people? We're close.
Do you eat yourself, or do you meat?
No.
More revelations online from us as well. In fact, most of our stories on there, and some great ones too, like this. Details of an illegal surprise. Police discovered chocolate eggs stuffed with cocaine in a London pub. Wow. Also too, African asylum seekers made their first appearance on the catwalk at a fashion event in Italy. They're getting a welcome there. Check it out, rt.com. The World Health Organization declared Africa Ebola-free on Thursday after a 42-day period without a single case.
WHO declares the end of the most recent outbreak of Ebola virus disease in Liberia.
The worst is over.
The World Health Organization has declared that Liberia is free of Ebola.
But the victory's been short-lived. Just 24 hours later, a new case of the deadly virus has been confirmed in Sierra Leone. At least 10 flare-ups that were not a part of the original outbreak have been reported in West Africa in the last 9 months. But the virus could now be easier to fight. RT's Ilya Petrenko met with Russian scientists who say they've created a vaccine.
2 super effective vaccines for the infamous Ebola virus that resulted in the deaths of more than 11,000 people in Africa. Right now I'm surrounded by the labs where the hard work of Russian scientists made this possible. Right now I'm going to get a unique chance to talk to the people behind the development.
The Ebola outbreak was of such a scale because licensed medicine didn't exist, and the virus could only be fought with prophylactic methods. But now we have special vaccine, and an outbreak could be controlled very soon.
They've already begun producing the vaccine on an industrial scale here, and we're going to see that process right now. Ilya Petrenko, RT, Moscow.
Maybe hope to clamp down on Ebola. You're watching RT International. Thanks for your company this weekend. Coming up, variety of programmes for you. We've got the story about a cafe in India that's become a safe haven for victims of acid attacks. Warning, if you're going to watch that, the report does contain some graphic images of the injuries those people received. It's a great programme, though. If you're in the UK, war crimes in Yemen and genocide in Japan are discussed in Going Underground. We'll let you take a choice.